Dragon's Dogma 2 tedious everyone. 8 hours gameplay, I feel it's enough now. I spent, 10 hours per vocation, except Trickster, which I really tried to come later. You know, I feel about Tricksters. But anyway, I think it's enough time, right? I'm still working on the Unicorn Overload game, just straight up. That game is like forever. It has like 70 unique characters too. So that thing's gonna be ridiculous big. Now we have a few vocation here, right? Gonna be a bit easier. So now we can spend some time both reviewing them and listing them, right? So again, I feel that when I make the tier list, similar to my SquareSoft tier list, right? Then I can actually also review all the games, right? Here we're gonna review the play styles, gameplay wise, design wise, not the experience playing them. But that's probably better. Yeah, Unicorn Overload versus Dogma. Unicorn's like 70 characters. It's gonna be like, yeah, okay. It's gonna be like 5 minutes per character. We can't sit there for 10 hours, right? So, it's pretty straightforward with Dragon's Dogma 2. Doesn't have that many vocations, right? You can see other mid here. It's about a 10, right? So, like I said, we're in depth on it. And you can see the tier list next to me here. We've got the S tier, right? Which I think one vocation is S tier. And then we got the AB, mid, trash, so, and Trickster tier. And yes, I hate Trickster so much. I said that I put Trickster, it's his own trash tier, okay? Spoilers alert, we're gonna review we're gonna talk about the S tiers, right? But Trickster tier is something, the only hell spawns of trash tier, okay? And I'll go with lanes to talk about later, right? But how much I hate Trickster. But seriously, I made several possible on Reddit yesterday, so right? And honestly, the worst thing I think with Trickster is that it gets the fanboys the most, right? You know. So the main with that is that I say it immediately, guys. Okay, I really hate playing as Trickster because I love playing that playstyle. The reason I hate Trickster as a super S trash tier, right? Is because that is the gameplay I love the most. Every game I worked on, I was asked to be the guy to design the Trickster, the control character, right? Or the Saboteur or whatever. When I'm the last time I know, lead game designer, I worked mostly on designing these kind of Trickster characters. This is like my thing when it comes to combat. Oh God! So the reason I hate Trickster so much, right? Is when it's shit. It's terrible. It's so boring to play. And every time I see people on Reddit or whatever discussing how much they dislike this class, everyone is like me. They're saying that they hate Trickster because it's a terrible gameplay experience. And every time the fanboys constantly and the defender is saying that, oh, you just want to go full damage. No, I want to have cool abilities. I want to be able to do some cool debuffs and dots or whatever. I want to be able to control several different summonings or whatever. I want something more exciting than having a taunt character that can taunt for me. Trickster isn't like incredibly unplayable from an actual strength skill, right? It's just incredibly tedious and boring because you summon a taunt and you like taunt. Like it's really boring. The clone can't explode. You can't, I don't know, debuff them in a proper way. It has one buff, okay? And that's terrible too because the spear hero, I think of shield hero now, mystical spear has a better buff, okay? Much better buff. That was good too, but Jesus Christ, man, the invulnerable buff that has is insane, right? And then lastly, Trickster is so terrible because the passive right. I keep saying it. You know that the person who worked Trickster is a bad job because you know it's bullshit that all the passive Trickster gets has nothing to do with the actual class vocation record itself, right? You know, it's like a character, and every passive person gets has something to do with being that person. Instead, it's like finding tokens, save ox card, right? It's just like incredible bullshit. It's just terrible game design, right? So, Mystic Archer has passives that buffs pawns, right? These are the obvious passives to have when you're playing Trickster. So one of them is like your pawns takes less damage, or the one like the pawn do more damage, right? These are again, especially the damage one, obvious Trickster passives. So of course the Trickster should be the one to have the passive that boosts your damage. It shouldn't be the kind of mystical archer that has the highest damage in the game by itself anyway. It doesn't make any sense, right? It's just terrible game design. It's just bad game design. It's terrible game design. But anyway, I still like the game though. So I'm playing Trickster. The game is still playable, guys, and I'm playing Trickster, right? I would say, when you make the seed list here, Dogma 2, if you haven't played the game yet, especially of course, watching the video and you're new to the game, the most important question is of course, who do you start playing as, right? That's probably where the actual most important is, right? You know, like the tier comes in this game. And it's quite different than other games. for example, I don't know, let's say Unicorn Overload or Fire Emblem and those games, right? Where you have like 30, 40 playable characters, 70 playable characters. And of course, tiers in that game is very important actually, because some are much better. But still, it's like, you know, if you take, let's say, a couple of mid-tier guys, right, and some A-tiers, it's probably fine, you know what I mean? It's probably fine, because they have like 40 playable characters on the same time in that game. It's fine if you have a few, you know, trash or whatever, right? But in a game like this, it's quite a huge difference in playing a pretty meh starting class and, you know, much better one. So I tried both, you know, replayed it, like removing like the save and just doing a level 1 again. And yeah, the game was so much faster if you play this vocation, right? So I'm going to the 4 beginner vocation then, right? The 4 beginner vocation. That goal is then thief. Okay? The thief is just really broken. Yeah, the thief is just super broken, seriously. If there's one thing I would say here immediately, it's just thief are broken. No, but generally, like the thief is incredibly much better than the other 3 starter vocations. So if you want to have an easy game, you start with thief if you haven't played the game yet. And honestly, I think it's so much better than the other 3 that I almost would say you shouldn't play it, because it like almost ruins the game. I mean, honestly, yeah, like so I started playing as a mage, and then I replayed it as level 1 again, like not a new game plus, who's trying it a bit for thief. And yeah, Jesus Christ, man, it's like too easy. Thief just like slays everything immediately. You jump up top of the, you spin around, like it does everything. It avoids, it's like a dodge tank, and Thief is just so broken that it almost makes the game, how say it, obsolete. The enemies, yeah, the game is just like too easy with Thief, honestly. I see a lot of people complaining that the game is too easy now when they like get higher levels or so on, but I think Thief is, yeah, and also arguably is the easiest vocation to get your master things. At least in my first playthrough, Thief was the first one I unlocked. It's a special, like a unique ultimate abilities. But yeah, Thief has really high damage. It taunts. It can tank by avoiding, right, like a dodge tank a little bit. It also has the passive to like you don't get so much aggro. It makes it easy for you pawn to just, you know, tank it for you, right? If you saw like a, because I would probably say that your starting pawn, come to that later suppose, but I would say your starting pawn should either be like mage or warrior, right? I'll play soon later, but yeah, so if you play thief then, yeah, it's much easier for you if they're like the other guys. I don't know, it's just also so much, it's just so much more, it's just so much better than the Rainier. Archer, I mean, sorry, Archer, whatever, Rainier, Archer, you know, like, same thing, different name, right? Let's talk about the other 3 then. Mage is like mid-tier. I think it's that, and this is, I'm not gonna be unique here, saying this thing what I'm saying right now, which is very true for this game. And honestly, probably is the Trickster's problem too, right? We come on Trickster later, but I think that this is like a genuine issue with all mage classes, right? Spellcasters. And that is the limited amount of spells you can have on you, right? And this is something that a lot of people complain about in this game. So again, like I'm not the first to say this thing, right? But I think that is actually, honestly, even with, I mean, Trickster is really trash anyway, but if you fix this thing, so you actually have more spell space, whatever, right? Like more, somehow, you only have 4 now, yeah. Like you have to have either weapon, press the R button, whatever, how you want to do it, or, you know, keep down the button, or whatever, how you want to UI it, you should have more ways to have more spells, right? If you had that, Trickster still would be really, really terrible, but at least it would be somewhat more playable, because the thing is that, honestly, it's like a fundamental flaw to with Trickster that I didn't even mention in my video because it's so terrible. But I guess the 8th flaw with Trickster is that you can only have 4 spells, right? If you want to play a control, like a saboteur, high ceiling, as you call it, control character, you need to have a lot of different spells, right? The rotation. I mean, the issue with Trickster is that it's so simple. You have taunt, and then buff sometimes. But you need to have several spells to rotate, right? But fundamentally, actually, in Dogma 2, the game actually kind of sucks in that way. I mean, I still like the game, but honestly, for all 3 spellcasters, right? So Mage, Sorcerer, and Trickster, or about this probably, so whatever, yeah. They're all pretty terrible in that sense because the game limits you to only have 4 spells on you, right? Which makes both Mage and Sorcerer not that fun to play. They're still like pretty useful, but they're not, kind of. And Trickster, which is really trash. But if at least they had like 8 spells on it, you could maybe use it more. But especially if it's Trickster, because you need to have a bunch of different stuff happening, right? Because to make that kind of class fun. And yeah, so limitation, because for example, the Tricksters are very gimmicky, like the floor that falls down, the tricky floor, right? that spell is terrible. You never use it. It's like 1 in 1,000 battles, right? So if you have any spell on you, if you've ever spell available to you, Trickster would be a lot better because you suddenly would have the option, right, to be like, well, okay, this spell is terrible, but once in a moonshiny light, I can use it, bam, you know. So, but now instead, you only have 4 spells on you. Do you want to walk around with an incredible, terrible spell that is very, very meh? Not really, right? That actually is one of the issues with Trickster. But it's more like game issue, right? Sorry if I kind of spin out that Trickster hate, but my point is it's more like the spellcasters in the game aren't that good, okay? And I'm also just talking about, how good they are, bad they are, or whatever. I also mostly referring to that general feel of playing them, right? Because yeah, when I started leveling up Mage, and it is honestly probably mid or trash tier because it feels just kind of nerfed in this game, right? Kind of neutered. Like I said, I think other people say the same thing with Mage. They feel like he's like, yeah, but I want to have more spells and so on. And when you're unlocking your new spells, right? And again, the game is pretty fun, but you kind of like, but I still kind of want to have both Ice and Light and Magic. Like I want to have one of them. We don't have space to have all of them, right? And it does get a little too limited, I would say, honestly. Sorcerer, I did play that as my second Vocation then. I locked it pretty early, right? After Mage. And I tried out. And yeah, same thing with Sorcerer. It's pretty fun to play. You know, it's some cool spells. But I do feel it says something there. That's like, first of all, Sorcerer obviously is like a better Mage, more or less. They feel way too similar, honestly. I mean, I keep saying I like the game, but the game's vocations are pretty terrible. This video should be ranting now. No, but seriously, all 3 of these are the worst part of the game, yeah. Honestly, I think so. Yeah, all the spellcasters are just badly designed in different ways, right? But again, fundamentally, far too few spells. But then also Mage and Sorcerer overlap, you know, with the flamethrower spell and so on. They have a lot of overlaps, so you basically have like some of the better, more useful spells are the same on the both. Why? You know, they should definitely be more different. Yeah. For example, top of my head, a druid. That's also, you know, like summoning elements or whatever, summoning plants, something. I don't know. But I mean, you could have different spellcasters, right? You could have a shaman instead. You get my point, right? You could have had other kind of typical fantasy class jobs that might have fit into the storyline without having Mage and Sorcerer, which are just, again, very, very similar. And Sorcerer feels like an upgrade of it. But all that being said, though, like I started playing Mage. I liked it. It wasn't like terrible or anything like that. And I get Sorcerer. Yeah, it's pretty fun. And you kind of like, you know, it's kind of like that. And maybe I'll have to rush now. Maybe it's just later with trash and mid tier. But Mage does though. End of the day though, Mage is like a worse Sorcerer. I keep saying it, right? But maybe I'm wrong. Never comment below if I'm wrong on this thing. But I don't think that Mage has any point in the game where you play Sorcerer. But there's no point being a Mage over Sorcerer. I might be wrong on that, but I don't think I am, because I think it's like I don't one thing the Mage has that is better than Sorcerer, but it's like you as the player, right? So the thing that Mage has is heal, of course, right? So the only thing Mage has that Sorcerer doesn't have is the heal. However, you as a player, you don't want to have it, right? You want to be the pawn, want to be the Mage, so they can heal you. Yeah, you don't want to be the healer yourself. I mean, I played Mage, it's fine, right? But like, you rather want to be the spell damage dealer. So yeah, I don't think there's any point ever playing Mage over Sorcerer, except if you want to heal, right? So it's much better just, you know, you being a Sorcerer and your pawn partner being a Mage. And when I played Swords, I mostly had still a Mage with me. Yeah, healing me or whatever, spamming spells. So it's kind of like that too. If you want to play Swords, one of the best pawn parties is actually kind of 4 mages. Yeah, I tried it. Yeah, like, seriously. One of the best teams is like 4 spellcasters, right? Because you do huge AoEs, just crush everything, yeah. So, but you still play the Sorcerer. So honestly, I see no point of Mage when you have Sorc. And again then, this might feel like I'm off-putting now, Thief and then Mage Sorc. But I feel this is how I have explained it, right? Thief is like really good and level 1, and Mage is pretty poor. This, honestly, I'm sorry if it's a bad explanation, I hope you can get it right. Thief, the best one for level 1, Mage is the worst one, right? And as soon as you get Sorc, you play Sorc instead, yeah. And you can learn Sorc pretty early in the game. I mean, I think I unlocked Sorc in like the first few hours, like 1-2 hours. You can unlock Sorc basically immediately, okay? I don't spoil too much if you play the game yet, but you basically get Sork in like the capital. You get the like first hour in the game. So first second, depending on how you play the game, but you probably get to the capital in 1 or 2 hours. Then you get the quest to unlock Sork, then and of course Warrior. It's coming to soon, yeah. But yeah, like you play Sork instead. I don't see what you play Mage for. So I think this is fair. I mean, even if I would lift up Mage Strike like here, then Sork would be here. You know what I mean? Yeah, Sork is obviously better. Like it's definitely 1 tier higher, bare minimum. So yeah, Mage probably the worst to play at level 1. Okay, so I think Archer Ranger, because I kind of like, yeah. I don't think Archer Ranger is terrible. I think it's pretty good actually. Okay, maybe it's better. Sork is probably better late game. This might be true. It might be a bigger jump there from Mage and Sork, but it's definitely better than Mage. Okay, so as an Archer, you can shoot stuff. You know, it's pretty useful. Very good against Harpies. Harpies, yeah, very good flying enemies. You do pretty high damage. One thing I like with the Archer is that they're pretty agile. Okay, they have these jump things you can like slide, and so they're pretty fun to play. They obviously, but they feel like a worse tier, right? Tier is better, yeah. But it's somewhere around here, like mid or B tier. Better DPS than the Mage probably most of the time early game, and it's better mobility, better survivability if anything, because you can easily avoid it and so on. Yeah, Mage is very, I guess, on purpose glass cannon, right? But it's hard to avoid stuff with Mage. You can have a slower guy there. You play Ranger, you can easily, or Archer, sorry, whatever, you know, yeah, and move around and so on. And you also get the Meister skill pretty early, if you do the elf thing, yeah, so something to think about. But, and honestly, that's a weird thing too, like, the Mage and the Sork thing, their Meister request is the same thing too. It's super annoying, yeah. It's just, I don't know, they're far too similar, yeah. God damn it, I realize how much I hate this game. No, I played 8 hours, but there is some, yeah, but honestly, I keep saying it, but it's like, I like this game, but I kind of hate how they did the classes, because yeah, I don't like how they did the Vocation, right, you know, not only Trickster, but also that Mage and Sork is just like, so similar, if it's the same, yeah, I keep saying it, same Vocation, right, it should have been something else, like Druid and Sork or whatever, I digress, you get my point, and I want to put too much fun, and then lastly, of course, Fighter then. Yeah, I don't know. Fighter isn't that good. I don't think Fighter is good. I think I definitely prefer, like, I prefer Ranger over Fighter. So Fighter is somewhere here probably, next to Mage. It might be like here. It is kind of like here. Definitely not Sword. No. So Fighter, first of all, I would not recommend you playing Fighter level 1, right? It is just, it's like the tank of the game. It doesn't do. It does lower damage than both Archer and Thief. It's really high damage. You can target. You can have a shield, right? I think that your starting pawn, if you're min-max here, should probably be either Mage, who can heal you, or it should be a Fighter. My first playthrough, I started with my pawn being a Fighter. She can then shield me and so on, right? And the next I tried with, you know, the opposite, yeah, Mage healing me instead, right? But I started as my first playthrough, as I said, I was Mage, and my pawn was Fighter then. So it's a pretty straightforward combo, right? Thanks for me. And then I played, like, you know, Thief with healing me instead. I mean, it kind of works, but yeah, it's somewhere there. And again, there, right? We can come to it, of course, now. Then the next Vocation is, I guess, similar to, of course, the Mage Sork thing, right? And that is Warrior. Something probably like this, because Warrior is definitely better than Fighter. But honestly, I don't think Fighter is that good. So I'm gonna probably do like this something. I don't know. It's a little bit, yeah. So Warrior is basically a better Fighter. It has the same issue that Mage and Sork has. But I don't think that it's that big of a difference, honestly. But I think of most of these characters, they probably aren't that massive difference. So basically, the Fighter is a better tank because it has a shield and then a one-hand weapon, right? And the Warrior is like the same thing, but you have two hands instead. So you do more damage. But honestly, they are very, very similar. Because it isn't just that the Warrior has like, oh, I want two-hand axe, one-hand axe and have less damage. But the thing is that they have kind of similar passives and similar abilities, right? So your warrior can still taunt and so on. They can still take damage, right? They can still like get damage to them. So even if you don't have a shield anymore, they still have like the provoke ability or whatever, right? They have that kind of like coming at me, right? So for example, your pawn. So I made my pawn a fighter into a warrior, right? Which probably most people do. That still works because you don't the game. You don't need to have like a super hardcore shield tanky for most bosses, or whatever, right? So making your pawn into a warrior, so a little more damage, is basically it's better. So it's gonna have the same thing there with Mage and Sorcerer. Yeah, it's the exact same. I would say it has the exact same issue, but it's a similar, more or less same issue, but probably a little better because, like I said, it does feel like fighter is a better tank though than the warrior, right? Where Mage is strictly worse than Sorcerer, except for healing then. But yeah, for one ability, for one spell basically, yeah. Where the warrior actually is a better. So I mean, for some boss fights, you would rather have a warrior pawn tanking for you than a fighting pawn, and vice versa, depending on like what you want to do, right? Where the mage is kind of like, well, if I want a healer, I have a mage, but otherwise it's pointless, right? If you play for example a Trickster, you don't need a healer. You need a healer in a way because of the debuff shitting, but for the taunting, you don't need a healer, right? If you play the Spearhead, Mystical Consumer, you don't need a healer at all. Mage is completely pointless then because you need a heal ever because you can just make the guys vulnerable instead. So it's a little bit like, well, if you need a healer, I guess you can pick this thing. So, but here at least I can see some boss fight actually being like, I actually want to fight it now rather than a warrior because I want to have super hardcore tanking, right? So slightly close to each other, and Archer is it's probably pretty fair, but they do feel like trash to me honestly because they are just like worse versions. Because I mean, why it's true as you said that, well, sometimes you actually do want to have the fighter over the warrior. Most of the time you don't want that. So I think this is like a fair thing. They both feel kind of trashy when you still have something better. Yeah. Now then, the three last vocations. When it comes to the advanced vocations, Trickster, of course, you know what I hate the trash here. Then we have Magical Archer and like Mystic Spear or Magical Spear or whatever. And both Magical Archer and Mystic Spear are kind of similar, where they're like a hybrid, right? Where they make like spell damage and you can punch stuff at the same time. So for example, you have this improvement of your spear attacks. It does both physical and magic damage. You have shooting arrows, they're both magical and so on. So both those classes are kind of the same thing, right? With a mixture magic / physical damage. And of course one of them is ranged or it's melee. So they kind of fulfill their vocation fairly well. And I would say immediately, they're both pretty good. Yeah, they're both high tier. They're very powerful. Both advanced classes are very good. However, and Trickster is absolute trash tier. If anything, that just makes Trickster stand out so much more how terrible it is. Because, so, Magic Archer is S tier. Okay? It's super broken. And I would say that Mystic Spear is the second best, yeah. It's better than Thief. It's really good. It's almost S tier as well, because it's really, really good. I'll explain why soon here. And then Trickster is absolute trash. It's insane trash tier. So when it comes to the advanced vocations, it's quite a big difference. Yeah, it's like two really good ones, the two best ones, and then the absolute worst one. And I mean, that makes it really stand out, right? But anyway, let's just start with Magic Archer. It's quite easy to explain why, if you've seen the videos, right? So Magic Archer has this insane burst damage. It can just shut up all its arch things, right? If anything, it's just too good for the game. Like it makes the game like arguably it makes the game boring too because it's just so good. With the correct build and you set up the spell things, you can like one shot a Drake before this fight starts. Right? You can enter boss fights and have all this like all your lightning, your magical arrows like charge up. So when the boss starts fight, the boss will lose like 2-3 life meters immediately. So some bosses, not every boss in the game, but most bosses in the game actually die of that. So you can use like insta-kill like an ogre or even a drake or whatever if you have the perfect builds on. So yeah, Mystic Archer is like super broken, like it's incredibly broken. And honestly, yeah, it is kind of similar to, obviously it's a better archer, right? The game has the thing going for it where it also feels like you have one basic vocation and you have the advanced vocation, right? So yeah, so obviously that Mystic Archer is super good archer, and Mystic Spearhead is like a better warrior, right? Most of the time. But yeah, so Mystic Spear is Mystic Archer super good. And then lastly, it has really good passives too. I mentioned it earlier, but basically the passives you want for Trickster, right? or all on the Magic Archer, yeah, for some reason. But actually, it's a pretty good passive, even if you don't play Trickster. So, it has one passive, this makes your pawn do more damage. I think that's the rank 9 passive. Correct now, yeah, I think it's rank 9. So basically, it's the last passive you unlock in the game, more or less. I just played Mystical Archer very early, but basically, yeah. So that passive is very, very good because, yeah, you know, increase a permanent or a constant passive buff that makes all your teammates do more damage. It is pretty legit, and it also does like both magical and physical damage, I believe. So it's just a very good passive. Right? The other passive is like they just take less damage. There's a rank 3 passive, I think. Yeah, level 3, rank 3. I mean, that's pretty fairly good too. Both of them are good, but obviously the DPS one is very good. So, because even if you change into playing Spearhead or Thief, whatever, right, you want to have your pawns do more damage. So that's basically the best passive in the game, more or less. So yeah, Mystical Archer is super S tier. And again, you should probably unlock it as fast as you can. Down with it's very. I'm not supposed to much of it's down in the south. Yeah, the team with that and the last one down there, Wayfarer, is they're probably the hardest one to unlock, right? They're the furthest away from your starting zone. Yeah, but it's the best passive, more or less. The other passive, well, I guess arguably there's some other passives like. There's a flat DPS passive, like the Thief has, and it is some stamina passives that it is arguably better because you can do more damage, you have more stamina, so I suppose. But for like the pawn thing, absolutely. Mystic Spear, which actually is probably my favorite Vocation in the game from a pure enjoyment standpoint. Really fun Vocation to play. It is basically a magical warrior, as I mentioned earlier, to some extent, but more fun to play. So basically. What it has is that it's a lancer. That's it. That is a lancer. You jump around with your spear. We have like two-handed spear things, land sorting. And you can fly around. You can land and so on. But honestly, it's kind of quite fun, right? Because similar to Thief, they're both good at getting atop of the monster, right? So you can jump on the Griffon or jump on the Dragon or whatever. So you can jump on top of it. So one of the abilities you can just dive upwards and then you land down on that, right? That ability is very, very good. Get up on the back on the enemies. If you want to enjoy that, like flying on a griffin, punch them in the face, you know what I mean? Then this is the best Vocation for them. Because they're very good again. Yeah, that ability is amazing. They also have this like flying towards ability, the first ability. So they're very, very good at teleporting around, right? You get top of the enemy. So that's good in general. Good against bosses and so on. And their Maester ability is that they just kind of like teleport around like crazy. It doesn't do like insane damage, but it makes you basically be like immune to damage yourself because you teleport moving around like this, right? And at the same time, you can like almost one-shot goblins or whatever. So you can be like, but he's like completely just massacred like a goblin camp, something like that. Yeah, like blink strike and kill them all. So it's quite fun to play, and it's quite strong because it also has the best passive in the game. There's also been a Trickster then. But seriously, of all the passive abilities, or support abilities, support abilities, Speed has the best one, yeah. So it's broken, like crazy broken. So it's almost S tier alone on that. So basically, well, I mean, honestly, I'm gonna argue and say that Mystic is actually S tier, because that passive, that buff to your team is just so broken. It's less broken against the Archer because you can wash out the boss before it starts. But yeah, but Archer's almost like S++ tier. So basically, Mystic and Archer are broken. Right? So Magic Archer, you have this insane burst damage, so boss die immediately. Right? Now, Mystic Experience that has this ability to buff your whole party, you and your pawns, and you get damage immunity. This case is crazy. Everyone gets a bubble, and it basically just breaks the game. Like, seriously. You spam it. You just spam it. You have two different, second level of it on rank 60, yeah. And I think it's rank 6. And you can just spam this, like, bubble buff constantly, and no one ever dies. You don't need to have a healer, and that also makes Trickster even more shit, because Trickster can taunt, right, Only, basically. But what if you just do, like, this bubble thing? The bubble thing is better, because no one dies or anything. You don't even care about it. And you can stand to do damage. And I tried it yesterday in several different boss fights with Spear. And it's just absurd. So you can stand, just punch, bubble when the boss hits you. punch, bubble. You can just time the bubble every time. It doesn't move. I tried it on like 3 bosses yesterday without even trying to move around, you know. I can just be like, just timing the bubble ability. You take no damage on the boss. The whole team takes no damage, right? It's absurd. And then, on top of that, as I mentioned earlier, you have teleportation, like 3 of them. You have the dive thing, this thing, that thing. So you can just constantly, you take like no damage when you play this Vocation. You can just teleport around and be damage immune for like 6 seconds. It's incredibly broken. And most bosses too, for that matter, when they're gonna hit you, right? If you do this like dive up thing, the Lancer ability from FFS ability, this ability, right? If you do that, you will avoid most damage, okay? Already on that point, you can avoid most damage. If you can time that correctly, the boss will miss you when they try to do it, or the mob or whatever. So if you combine that with the shield thing, you should basically be able to almost take any enemy in the game to take any damage. Use at least, but she alone basically does it. But even more if you combo it with the jump thing. So it's just really broken. It's really broken. The damage though is probably a little in the lower. I think Tito's more damage over, but yeah, it's like the lower. It isn't S tier damage, but it's S tier like for supporting your team. Thanks. So now then, Trickster. So I already made a video only about Trickster. So I'm not going into the details here because that video explains all the design flaws of Trickster, right? And why it's so incredibly boring to play. But basically, Trickster has 2 abilities, okay? It has like 10 abilities and 2 of them are playable, so it's pretty useless. So it can taunt, which is the best class in the game to taunt for, yes. And it can do this buff, right? You know, a damage buff. And that's it. You can also put your effigy on them, so they might attack it. But that's kind of like a meh thing. And I know you can do the Dragon Breath that works on a few enemies, okay? But everything else is just pointless, Trickster. So the tricky floor thing, it never works. It works on like 1 out of 20 bosses in the game, okay? It's terrible. I said earlier because they have so few magic slots to, right? Okay. Another bad Trickster gets. This is the rank 19 to it. Is you can like see enemy hiding or something. So I mean, it's also terrible ability. It's like, oh yeah, I can see a goblin standing in the bush over there. That's gonna be useful. So of course that is completely pointless in the actual boss fight or anything else that, you know. Trickster can ask for project, which also is pretty pointless. You can, oh, I can fly around looking on the corner. But it does the same thing! It does the same thing as the seeing through the bush thing, right? They're both the same ability. Like one of them is like, oh, I can see every enemy. Another one, I can look around the corner. These are both the same abilities, okay? And you have 4 levels of that shit. Like, what? Jesus Christ! And then the passives is like, I can find tokens, you know? So the character is completely pointless, right? That's why it is left with having like, oh, I can taunt, and I can do like an AoE taunt. Oh yeah, great, you know? It does no damage whatsoever, which was stupid, because it puts you in positions where you have like, oh, I'm standing next to a goblin with 1 health point, I can't kill him. I know you can use items on him, I'm sorry, but I don't care. The game should have to force me to get into my inventory that takes fit slogs against it, open up a thing and this thing. That's completely against any UX, okay? I mean, I have a freaking master degree in this shit, okay? Like, that's terrible game design, okay? Like, you don't want to force the player to open the menu to throw a bottle at them. That's terrible. You want to be able to do it immediately by punching them in the face, you know? So the Trickster is like better unequipped. Like, it's so bad. Trickster is just utter garbage, okay? It's utter garbage. I keep saying it, but think about it. It has like 6 or 7 abilities that do nothing. Like, it genuinely, like I said, right, it has the look around the corner ability and see through the corner ability. 4 of those. Why? Why? It has the trick floor thing that works 1 in 20,000 bosses. And what was the bugs the AI, okay? There's the shield thing that sometimes the boss go through, sometimes they don't. It's just bug it too. Like, Jesus Christ. And left are you with the taunting and the buff thing, okay? The buff thing takes it hurts your allies for some reason. And I can see what happened here. Someone was like, well, buffing everyone the DPS sounds really powerful. We need to have some kind of balance to it, right? But it's only powerful if it has other abilities. Like if it had like a dot or something, there was time, some debuff, some poison cloud there, some explosive cloud, some explosive clothes there. Then you might have to say, well, okay, this like DPS buff has to have a drawback. But that one is the only thing it has that is good. What? It does me crazy. It's so incredibly bad design character. And it just drives me crazy, right? I keep saying it because it's like, Jesus Christ. is a terrible game design. It's really boring to play. As I read over earlier, right, with the Mage stuff, you need to have more rotation. You need to have some upkeep of your spells or whatever. As I read in my video, you need to have some kind of summonings or maybe cloning your allies. If anything, it's actually weird that you have already 3 pawns, and I expect kind of Trickster control character to have more stuff to control, right? So you should be able to summon some, I don't know, unicorns or dragons or whatever, but actual like fighting animals, something like that. So you have like 6 or 7 things to control, right? Imagine like a necromancer, you would have like say 3 skeletons and 3 pawns, right? They're like 6 guys on your team. That's something what you expect, right? And then if you have the mystical archer buff, the passive, buff your skeletons too, whatever. That's kind of what you expect, something like that with Trickster. But no, it just has like the taunting, the buff thing, a little bit of that. And I think no matter how people defend the Trickster, right? And they say, oh, but you can FG this thing. And end of the day, Trickster literally only has 3 abilities that do anything. And that is again then the taunt, the FG on them, and the buff, right? Because the shield thing is bugged. It works sometimes, but doesn't really do anything, and most mostly ignore it, right? And the floor thing is just buggy, and all the other abilities are completely pointless. Like the whole like, oh, I can see tokens or whatever, yeah. So it literally has like, I think like 7 or 8 abilities that do nothing in combat, and that's end of the day, right? That's how it's so bad, because like it deserves to be its own epic trash tier, because it is just like, what were they thinking? You can't have a class or a character. It doesn't do anything in the fight, right? And I don't mean it just because, again, to really emphasize here, I'm not talking about damage. I'm talking about generally doing something. It could be healing, it could be confusing enemies, it could do other stuff than just taunting, right? I'm not saying that it has to do damage, I'm saying it has to do something. Mostly you stand there. And of course you stand there because you have no abilities. So after you have taunted them and you buffed all the guys, you can't do anything else really. Most of the time, it doesn't help to, like on a boss fight, it doesn't help you to throw your ghost on them, right? It doesn't really. So basically, on boss fights, you only have 2 abilities. Yeah, literally. So it's like taunt and the buff thing. And then the rest, you don't do anything. You can throw some stuff at them, I know, but like, what can you do? And it's just so incredibly bad. I can't believe this got passed through it, right? But anyway, the Trickster RANT, it's a terrible class. Now, let's do the last vocation, which is then, of course, a Wayfarer. Which is somebody probably here somewhere, I don't know. It's like a little weird vocation. So basically, the way Wayfarer works, right, is it just uses all the other vocations, right? So, it's a mixture of it. And interestingly, it's a better Trickster, because you can use the Trickster stuff, I suppose, right? You can use it while playing it. The best thing with Wayfarer is probably when you play it, you level all the other classes. So it's the smoothest way to like leveling up everything else. It takes a long time, though, of course, but still, kind of like, I think it's probably, I mean, at least you have to go around and go back to the cities or whatever to get your change location and so on. So it is probably the best way to level up your vocations. Probably the fastest way. And yeah, you basically combine different abilities. So it's a cool idea. Now it has worse stats than the other ones. And for example then, what is the point of combining like Mystic Archer with whatever, right? Because you do so much insane damage as Mystic Archer. So it's like, whatever, I don't need to combine that. Yes, I have my damage, right? And I don't want my damage to be lowered when I turn into something else. So no. I think it's probably fair to really have it somewhere in the B, because it doesn't actually get that much benefit, surprisingly enough, maybe. I think in other games it probably would have had be better, but Wayfarer isn't that good, because I think it comes back to what I said earlier, of course, that you have a limited amount of equipment or spells or whatever, right? So because of the limited amount of abilities you have on you, the Wayfarer using Trickster can't do that much, because you don't have like 30 spells on you. I mean, you have like 5, 4, and maybe like the change weapon thing. So it's like you don't have that many abilities, and that kind of limits the Wayfarer to actually be able to combine spells kind of freely in or abilities. Yeah, speaking, the way you might imagine if you haven't played the game. So it is like a weird, honestly, that thing that I said earlier. Yeah, it's kind of. It's definitely limiting a lot of this stuff, right? But for example, as I mentioned, Wayfarer is the best Trickster, right? 100%, because you can use Trickster abilities like taunting and so on. but still having this thing. But he just kind of falls out on the stats there, right? So the damage there is weaker. And Thief does like insane damage, okay? This was about Thief is like super broken. It does like too high damage for a starter class. Yeah, it's way too powerful. So Wayfarer feels like a weaker. I don't know. I guess it's probably to me feels more similar to like Mystic Spear probably, because it does like lower damage. Maybe it does high damage. Maybe it is better. But maybe it does high damage than Spear because you can still use some of the abilities and you can throw some of the Sorcerer spells. I don't know. I don't feel it's that good, honestly, because of the limitation of your utility, right? So it's somewhere like B. I feel it's pretty fast. Somewhere like mid or B, where it's like, well, it is better probably than this. Like, it is definitely better than basic Vocation, except Thief then, because it does so much damage. Certainly. I don't find Warrior that good, so it's somewhere there. Yeah. I think it's a pretty accurate list, seriously. This I feel is the accurate list here. So yeah, let's go over it briefly again, guys. We subscribe, slap it there. Here's an accurate list for Dragon's Dogma 2, where Magic Archer, super broken. You just kill everything immediately. It's like incredibly deep broken. Spear, Mr. Spear, best support class. You're immortal. Everyone is immortal, okay? Less damage than the Archer, but no one can die anymore in your team, so that also is like broken. Thief, incredibly by far the best starting Vocation, by far. Really high damage, mobility, easy basics to unlock. It's just really, really good, and it plays the game, I think, more fun to play too than the other starter class, honestly. Wayfarer, limited by his Sorcerer, the same thing, like limitation of the number of spells you have. Just means you can't do that much, and you kind of, Mage case. Warrior, decent Vocation, you can do some damage, okay. Archer, Ranger, okay, different feel to it. I like the game different, but it's decent. Fighter is a worse warrior for the play, definitely. Mage, same thing there, right? It's just a worse Sorcerer. You probably want to have a Mage in your party, though, for most pawn parties, because they can heal, right? They're basically the cleric of the thing, the priest, right? So I think Mage is trash, honestly. For the player, it's trash. But as a party member, it actually is probably like some B tier, because you want to have that healing spam, right? But also, the amount of heal. And then last goes Trickster, utter trash, right? It's the worst thing I've seen in my life. It's so bad that I feel like 2 is not much hated. But it's so bad, like it ruins my day. I say it lastly, right? Trickster is so incredibly bad because I think me and so many other people, we see Trickster as being like, oh, that's gonna be my class, Before I bought the game, I look at the trailer, I'm like, oh, Trickster, this is gonna be my thing. Illusion, summoning, damage over time, debuffs, trickery, woo, You have that feel, you're like, yeah! So it's really, really frustrating because that's kind of the gameplay expect, you know what I mean? When I play, I don't know, some random game, Overwatch, whatever, like some other game with Hero or something like that, you kind of think that, well, I want to play the character that puts on weird traps or build stuff, right, so on. I like the Torbjörn, so yeah, I wanna build my little traps or whatever, yeah, that kind of stuff, That's what you imagine Trickster to be, Because, for example, Trickster, why can't the clone explode for? It's an obvious thing. The clone should have like an explosive button so you can explode and hurt the enemies, or like, give them some poison or whatever, yeah, it should be like, boom, That'd be fun, right? You taunt them, you get to your clone, and then you explode the clone on them, and you poison the 5 goblins, or they start burning or whatever. Like, that would make sense. Like, something like that, to be more fun, more interactive. So, yeah, it's really, really, it's so obvious too, right? It's so obvious how you make it better too. It's so obvious thing for everyone, how you make Trickster better. Stuff I just mentioned, right, are obvious, and they're in other games. So you sit and be like, oh god. And then the whole community, where like certain percent of these fanboys are always defending it, always defending Capcom, and be like, oh, but like ooga booga damage. No one that actually wants to play Trickster wants to do damage, right? Again, we want to have a fun gameplay with a bunch of different spells and illusions and summonings and all that, a lot of complicated combos. We want to have it be really, really obscurely a lot of elements, right? The damage could have been 0 if you had a lot of cool effects to do and a lot of cool debuffs and so on, right? Maybe some confusion, this hit, sort of blah, blah, blah. But instead it's like, we do nothing. We stand there and I keep saying, Trickster is the easiest class to play in the game. Because it's like taunt. It's super boring. And it really makes me angry every time I see someone defending it, because they always defend it by saying that you just don't want to play you just want to be damaged. No, I want to be an interesting control character. I don't want to play damage. The point is that I want to play Trickster, but the actual, what it does is just terrible, okay? Now I finished my rant, Jesus Christ, man. I knew it was going to be more rant than I was wanted to this, but I was pissed off how bad Trickster is. And I really want to emphasize how bad it is. And I mean, from a game design, user design, whatever you call it, from a engineering standpoint, whatever, it's so terrible. Anyway, for the video, subscribe, have a great day.